Hello and welcome back to the Customers Who Click podcast. This week we've got another really interesting topic as we explore voucher fraud and the problems caused by certain Chrome extensions that find codes for customers. With me today I've got Matt Gillis, the founder of Clean.io, who is working to protect merchants from these extensions. From a customer point of view, these extensions are fantastic, as you no longer need to go searching for discount codes. If there's one available, it's probably in the plugin and therefore it'll get applied at checkout. But from a business point of view, there are multiple downsides, and I'll let Matt explain that now. Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today. If you could tell us a bit about yourself, a bit of your background, and why you're up to what you're doing at the moment.
Hey, Will. First off, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and excited to share our story at Clean.io with your listeners. My name is Matt Gillis. I'm the CEO of Clean.io. Career-wise, I'm a journeyman in mobile. Been in mobile my whole career, through mobile video games and working at wireless carriers and working in the ads business. So been doing this a long time, but I've been the CEO of Clean.io for 2 years now. Our company is a 3-year-old cybersecurity company. We kind of package ourselves as a digital engagement security platform. We really help websites protect the user experience and protect their revenue. And, I said that I came from the ads business and that's where I was prior to here. And the first problem that our company went out and solved was this problem called malvertising. And I'm sure it's happened to you, Will, because it's kind of happened to everybody that I know, where you're on a website and all of a sudden you're scrolling and your screen gets taken over and it takes you to a landing page that says, congratulations, you've won a Amazon gift card, or congratulations, Vodafone user, you're the 8,000th person, you've won this prize. And so a lot of kind of misleading and that sort of thing. And so we actually went out to solve that problem. That problem manifests itself with bad actors who are using the ads ecosystem to inject code onto websites. Most of our customers are publishers or platforms in the ad tech ecosystem. So probably many of the sites that you would go to on a daily basis, our code runs. And we protect the user experience and revenue because when sites are under attack from those sort of nefarious behaviors, it's really disruptive to the user experience. Users can't get back to what they were consuming. It destroys ad revenue. So that single thing that publishers rely on to make their money. And lo and behold, it obviously gives a pretty bad taste in users' mouths and kind of hurts the reputation of the site. So we've been doing that since day one here. And, I'm excited to fill you in on this new product that we're coming out with now called Clean Cart.
Well, just before you go into that, just on the malvertising, you mentioned the one that I think everyone's probably seen. I've seen that a lot. You're a winner. Hi. They've somehow detected the network as well. So hi, 3 mobile user, blah, blah, blah. The one I came across quite recently actually was this advert automatically added a calendar to my phone. I don't know how it did it. Don't know how that works, but it added a calendar to my phone,
I love it.
Which then had, I think it was about 10 notifications or 10 like events, like pre-installed, ready to go over the next hour or two, literally just saying, you need to do this, like click this link, go and do this.
It's pretty intrusive, right?
There was no messaging around, we've hacked your phone, do this, otherwise this will happen. It was just annoying. just the most annoying thing. And I had to go and look up how to remove a calendar because actually it's not too easy on the iPhone.
Well, and I think the thing is that the bad actors, they're actually quite sophisticated and they've out innovated most in the industry. They're like, if you think about it, a normal advertiser, like a good guy who's advertising and buying ads on websites, they hope for a, 0.5% click-through rate. That would be really good. And these bad actors have figured out through technology, they've figured out how to actually buy an ad for that same price, but actually generate a 100% click-through rate. They know how to, once that ad renders on the device, start to, fingerprint, unpack JavaScript, start executing code, and do all these nefarious things that take you away from the thing that you were doing. And so, it's, what we really do, we have this mantra that we believe that like you own your website, you should be able to control the code that executes on your website. And, in the ad world, right? So think of like your favorite news site or where you go to read your entertainment. I'm sure you're into the Hollywood gossip, Will. Like, we believe that you should be able to protect your user experience if you own that site. And there's a whole bunch of code that comes to your website that you don't own or control, specifically the ads. And so that's what we do. We've kind of like, I would say that we've, really found product market fit. We protect, I think, like somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 or 8 million sites per month that have our code that executes on their website at runtime to protect the user experience and revenue. So pretty mature business. And the problem is, always iterating, right? Like, as you said, the one that you had, they installed a calendar invite where it, creates pop-ups and notifications, hopefully getting you to then click that. In other cases, it's just that simple, annoying redirect that says you've won something, or you have viruses on your phone, click here and we'll get rid of them for you. And it launches you into the app store to download some shady app. So yeah, the behaviors are all generally profit driven. They're looking to, create an event that they can actually make money on or bill you for. Usually they're trying to capture your PII. So they're looking to get your email address or something in the process. And, I think for these bad actors, the why is like, I'm sure it's very profitable. They can buy ads at a very low price and get 100% click-through rate. And if you just get one email address, there's probably a bounty of what an email address is worth. And, you and I probably aren't going to fall for this sort of thing, but, there's a lot of people that do every single day. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a whole bunch of emails in your inbox that say, your Netflix billing has ended. Click here to change your Netflix payment information, right? People click on those things, even though it's very apparent, generally because the email URL doesn't come from Netflix, but like people fall for this sort of stuff, this sort of phishing every day. And so that's the business that we built on that side. And we kind of learned a lot about protecting websites from malicious JavaScript. And what we found was that there's a lot of e-commerce sites where same sort of problem, where there's code that executes on their site that they don't own, that they don't control, that are impacting user experiences and revenue. Hence, our product called Clean Cart. All
right. Sounds interesting. Well, let's talk about that a bit more then, because I immediately started thinking of extensions that do like automation on LinkedIn and things like that, which some get blocked, some don't. I think LinkedIn's quite happy to leave some running. But yeah, let's talk about Clean Cart then.
Yeah, well, in the ads world, obviously, like the bad actors are, folks that we don't know. They probably live in their parents' basement in some foreign country, and they're malicious and looking to disrupt and create profit motives. In the e-commerce world, kind of what we started to notice where there were a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily malicious sort of activity. Like, if you think about it, it's, but it's more untrusted. So one of the areas where we went to really focus on, if you've heard of this, this company Honey or this company Wikibuy, Honey was acquired by PayPal for $4.5 billion. Wikibuy was acquired by Capital One. They've now rebranded and they're called Capital One Shopping. And these two companies, and there's a whole bunch of others. What they do is they are Chrome extensions or Firefox or Safari extensions on your PCs. And when you're at checkout, ready to buy a product on an e-commerce site, generally speaking, these little widgets will pop up and say, hey, Will, guess what? We've got a coupon for you that we think can save you some money. Would you like us to add it? And, obviously you being cost conscious and wanting to save money, you're like, sure, I'll click that link. And lo and behold, Honey starts to add coupons to your cart, and you may save 20 or 30%, or maybe even upwards of 50%. The reality is these coupon extensions are having significant, disruption for merchants, for their margins, for their revenue, right? So like, obviously, if you had $100 cart and Honey pops up and saves you 20%, the merchants lost $20 right there. There's affiliate abuse that comes with this. There's, attribution challenges for merchants. And I think like the one thing that's hard to quantify is like the time and energy spent with like the teams that are trying to do these discounting strategies or create these promotional codes and shut them down and kind of chase your tail when one of your codes gets leaked to Honey or Wikibuy, and all of a sudden all of your orders are getting massive discounts. So, it's the problem is actually quite widespread. And I think it's only going to get worse when you think of who the parent companies that are investing in these businesses like PayPal, right? They're putting a lot of money behind it. Here in the United States, where I live, Capital One Shopping, which is formerly known as WikiBuy, they have commercials on TV telling users with Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta, go get Capital One Shopping so that you can save money. So their interests are really in driving prices down and creating this disruption for merchants when it's not really driving incremental net new sales.
Yeah, I think we've had honey adverts here. Well, I'm sure I've seen honey adverts on TV.
Mm-hmm. I've seen them on Twitter. I've seen them on Facebook. Like they're advertising on all the social media platforms and really just try to drive net new users. Totally.
I suppose part of the reason, maybe, I'm not too sure about honey, but I guess for Capital One, one of the incentives is if they can improve conversion rates by a high enough amount to offset the discount, they are earning more money through the transaction fees.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. People try to understand motives, right? And I think it's obviously like, payments processing. It's, in the case of PayPal, like they're trying to drive penetration of their digital wallet. I think that there's a pretty significant data aspect to this, which is really understanding consumer behaviors and buying habits and all of that sort of stuff and getting smarter. Because if you think about it, Honey, I think they state publicly that they've got 17 million users. So, that's a pretty good sample size of purchase behavior and understanding what's happening in the ecosystem. And, and then again, you go back to the profit motive. Nobody's really doing this for free. I'll see a lot of times where like, even when honey pops up, sometimes it's a honey code where it actually says honey in the code, which my gut says honey has somehow convinced the merchant that they're adding value in the process. So the merchant has partnered with honey. But in many other cases, there's just some wacky nondescript code, which is someone's affiliate code that got swapped up. And so now the merchant not only is giving a discount of which they didn't intend to give to that particular user, but they're also paying affiliate fees on top of that. So, I think it's one of those things. I think we're in the early stages of this and it's come up pretty quickly, but for us, it's exciting. We're in closed beta with 20 different merchants who are actually using our software, and we're blocking these extensions in real time and saving money and learning a lot more about purchase behaviors and revenue reductions and what it's costing them and what the ROI is.
I used to work in affiliates quite a few years ago, so I don't know how much has changed, but I imagine the way I see it working is if Honey did basically steal a code from somewhere else, the merchant who was given, the affiliate who was given the code wouldn't get paid because people aren't clicking through their affiliate link, which is where the tracking works. And then what you'd probably do is as long as you're paying attention, you would look through the affiliate sales and you just reject all of Honey's affiliate revenue commission. And you'd say that's not your code. You don't get commission on that because it states in our terms and conditions, you only get commission off the sales we agree with you that you're allowed.
So listen, you have a much deeper history on that side of the business than I do. Obviously I come from, the mobile and the ad, tech side of the world. I think when we talk to merchants, I don't think it's as simple as what you're saying, because I think merchants are using multiple channels to drive sales, and they're using promo codes and discounting strategies to drive revenue. One of the big channels folks are using are things like social media influencers or podcasts.
That only applies to one set of affiliates who use tracking links. Because they're a voucher website or they're a comparison website.
You're right.
As soon as you get into the more complex area of like we were talking about before the podcast, podcast advertising. The only way to do it is to give out a code.
Well, exactly. And so think about this. Obviously we're talking to tons of merchants and like the pain point is super acute. The reason I know that is like we've already got people calling us for this product, and we really haven't done any marketing for it. And so there's just a lot of word of mouth happening of like how acute the pain point is, and everyone's looking for a solution. Basically, one of the folks that came in through our inbound channel this morning, wanting to partner with us, said that they've been trying to solve this problem for the last 2 years on their own. That's awesome. Like, to me, that gets me excited, knowing that we've really, hit a big pain point that we're going to actually go out and help people solve. But, when you go back to like the social media influencers or the podcasts or whatnot, you're giving, like, you're having someone read a code, or you're having someone in there, reach out to their, million followers on Instagram and say, hey, like, I've partnered with this company and use the code, summer 25, and you'll get that discount. Well, folks are totally losing control because they're seeing Honey pick up those codes, because Honey's going to automatically add the biggest discount that they can for the end user. And my gut says that Honey is somehow working with some of these folks through other channels to get paid. Like, I don't think Honey's doing this as a total service to end users to not get paid. So there are ways in which, affiliates, whether, it's the affiliates in the world that you're talking, or, affiliates that kind of rebroker and try and figure out how to drive more sales, the merchants are paying for these sales somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, I imagine part of what it is Honey wants to get every single user it can on. And if it means it gets paid for 1 in every 100 transactions that it generates a code for, it's happy with that, because it's got, currently 17 million people.
You got it.
And if, it's a volume game for them.
They're optimizing. They're optimizing for user discount. My gut says they're optimizing. Like, if I would imagine that their algorithm is like, hey, we're going to give the biggest discount that we have available. And if we have 2 of the same biggest discounts available, because often merchants will do a whole bunch of 10% off or 15% off codes, they're going to then apply the code. Tie goes to the runner. That's a baseball analogy in the US, right? So Honey is going to apply the code that they get paid on versus the one that they don't get paid on. I don't think it's random, right? Yeah. So, but you're right. I think they optimize for making sure that the user has the best experience, so that they'll go and tell their friends. And listen, I saw over the holidays, I actually saw people in my Facebook feed like marketing Honey to their friends, saying like, you need to go and get this. I saved a ton of money over the break. So, I think they're on to something, but I don't know if it's, I'm seeing a lot of tissue rejection with merchants around the world.
Well, they do. They have their, I haven't looked into it too much, but Honey Gold or something. So you get rewarded for when you successfully use Honey on a website.
Totally.
So even if you're not getting you're getting the financial discount. Honey might not be getting paid on that, but they're rewarding you further to make you happier and more engaged, which makes you then talk to your friends about it. So their cost of acquisition is probably tiny. It probably takes
brand
one
loyalty
commission
with Honey, right? So like the Honey Gold is a loyalty program for Honey and a cashback program for use of Honey, but that does not create brand loyalty with the merchant, right?
No, definitely not.
That's where the merchants are getting disintermediated from their customer relationships.
Yeah. And I imagine it probably takes one commission sale to pay for the acquisition of a user.
You're probably right.
I reckon there, because I know. So again, this was years ago when I was in affiliates. We ran incentive ads. So was it incentive ads?
Yeah,
I think that's what it's called.
I think they call them rewarded.
Yeah. So you'd be in a game, you'd lose the game, but because this ad would pop up and say, download this app and we'll give you an extra life.
Yep.
Whatever. We had amazing success with those ads, contrary to what all the data said, because our app was just one of those apps that when people downloaded it and looked at it, they went, oh, actually, this could be quite useful. And it's just like Honey. It was a voucher website. We didn't have the Chrome extension and things like that. But essentially it was, when you go shopping, open this app up, have a look, and you might get a discount. Like it's free to use, completely free for the user. So that's why it worked really well for us. And I imagine it's kind of a similar thing for them. Like, friends will tell friends about it. They'll download it, have a look and go, yeah, cool. They might forget about it, but once it's in Chrome, it's done its job.
Exactly right. Yeah. I think it's funny. You've been in the business a long time, obviously, so you know this world. And in mobile, in the early days of mobile advertising, the word incentivized was like a dirty word, right? It was like that's not valuable to me. But then somebody repackaged it and called it rewarded, and rewarded became actually like a pretty important currency in the mobile ecosystem, specifically rewarded video. meaning, hey, if you're playing Candy Crush and you run out of lives, watch this TV commercial and we'll give you an extra life. And like the math worked out where there was that exchange of value where everybody felt good about it. Like, how else were some of these, TV commercials, like people's viewing habits have changed. Like, how do you actually own their attention? And there's a value to owning that attention. And so I think the repackaging of it from incentivized to rewarded was a pretty big change. And it made it actually a great way for you to actually get views and complete views, right? Because completed views was a big metric that advertisers were concerned about. No better way to get completed views than rewarded video, in an interstitial with Candy Crush.
Although arguably the engagement's not too great, you can just put your phone down and let the ad run, which is
sure. But what's the engagement on YouTube when someone hits the skip button after 4 seconds, right? Like it's, you have their captive attention theoretically. Anyways, it's everyone's trying to drive that behavior, and right, and they want they want it to be able to track it and attribute it to the right, to the right vehicles, so that they know where to spend their marketing dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any kind of misconceptions then about these coupon extensions from a brand point of view? Because I think you mentioned, you said somehow Honey's probably convinced some of these merchants to pay them.
You're right. I think there's a couple different camps, right? So I think, in the folks that are reaching out to us and partnering with us, it's very apparent that the merchants that we're talking to, for the most part, have adversarial relationships and have a negative opinion of what's happening. And I think most of those folks, I would say that they're very savvy in data. Like when something looks odd, they question it and they understand, attribution. Even like I've seen emails. I mean, I also tell folks, like, let's not forget we're consumers too. I've had brands send me a promo code and in the email say, hey, make sure you use it quickly because Honey is stealing our coupons and we're going to have to shut it down very soon. So like there is this adversarial relationship on one side of the coin where I think folks detest it and they want control of their margins. They want control of their user experience and their revenue. I would think on the other hand, I think there are folks that, kind of the devil is better than the devil you don't. Like, I think they're kind of like, hey, like, give it a try. Let's partner. Let's see what's there. And I've had some of that reaction from some folks where, they feel like it could be incremental or it could be improving their conversion rates, but they really don't have the data to substantiate it. But their gut says, let's give it a try. So I think there are two different sides to the equation. And, I think that the more that we get into data with people to really understand underneath, the hood, what's going on, and we can quantify and show them the benefits, even better. So I think that's, really where we see a benefit here.
I kind of talked about auto applying discounts before. It's one thing I'm a bit of a fan of, because one issue with having discount or promo code boxes on a website is that people see them and potentially people go and look for those codes. Mm-hmm. So one thing I've talked about before is, well, if there's a code available, if it's widely available to people, apply it anyway. So if you have a 10% off for new customers code, when someone gets to checkout, just give it to them. Just apply it, put it in a drop down, whatever, just let them use it. But obviously you don't have to do that for, affiliate codes, influencer codes, podcast codes and things like that. Do you think, you can maybe give people a different experience to people who use these extensions or try to use these extensions if the extension is trying to offer them a code they're not supposed to have?
Yeah, it's interesting. We obviously talking to lots of merchants, we hear and see, a whole magnitude of strategies that folks are using. The one that you often see is that, at the header of a website, it'll say like first time users, give us your email address and you'll get 10% off, right? Which like, to me, everybody sees that. Not everybody types that in, or not everybody goes to that box, or sometimes they'll even actually be as overt as saying like, putting the code in the header of the website, like first 10, apply first 10 at checkout and you'll get this. And so I've seen that. I've seen people auto apply a discount. I've heard merchants say, like, listen, if we were to segment the people that have one of these browser extensions, can we override and can we just give them a super low discount just to like, so that we don't mess with their mindset through through that sale process. So I don't think there's any silver bullet here, Will. I think it's like, really trying to be thoughtful with data, I think is like the key thing, right? The more that you can make data-driven decisions, the better. I think we live in these seas of data. But I think that even in then there's like a lack of actionable data. And I've talked to a lot of merchants about like, how do you judge incrementality? And many don't have the answer. And that's really why they're marketing, right? They're trying to drive incremental sales. And so I think there's a lot to be learned and we're in the early stages of this thing. And I think it's super exciting because I think every day we're kind of uncovering a net new use case, a net new behavior, whether it's people using them in podcasts or like one of the things that we've come across recently is like, obviously because of COVID, people are giving discounts to first responders. Well, like it breaks my heart when I see Honey apply a first responder 25 code because for me, I'm not a first responder. Why should I be getting a first responder 25 code? And why should Honey be the arbiter in saying I deserve that? It's almost like a military code, right? It's an honor to be ex-military. No one deserves those discounts except military. So I think there's a whole bunch of, that we're uncovering and finding with this ecosystem that, strikes me that there's big pain points. Margins are super thin, and anything that we can do to give that control back to merchants, I think the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you on that. There are codes out there that are specifically generated for a certain group of people who, for some reason, have been given it. For example, I think loads of stuff happened here last year for the NHS.
Yeah,
and probably not just the NHS actually, but they got there was a lot of obviously praise for them for what they were doing. You wouldn't go into a store with a fake NHS card and try and claim the discount, would you?
I mean, if you didn't have integrity, if you didn't have integrity and a conscience, you wouldn't. You're right. And it's funny. You're like, I'll give you another example. By the way, I've got about 100 examples of how merchants have, really felt this damage. One merchant that I was speaking with, they did about 15 million in sales a year online. Right. So like, I would say good sized business. So call it like, 15 million bucks. Like they're doing about million and a half a month in revenue. They sponsored a basketball team here, and they came up with a promotional code that was only going to be used for that basketball team during their broadcasts in a crawl along the TV screen. And so the code was Magic. They sponsored the Orlando Magic. The crawl on the broadcast said, use code Magic at checkout and you'll save 30%. Well, they were excited to see that the use of that code was really high. And like the reality is the Orlando Magic does not have that big of a basketball audience. And so when they actually did the math in the month of August of last year, this is when I was talking to them, they lost $150,000 in like discounts to promo codes. So about 10% of their overall revenue. And that code was $100,000 of that $150,000. So, of the 10% that they were losing, about 6 or 7% was coming from that one code. And when they blocked that code, 25% off coupons immediately shot up. And so like, that's to me where like, if you're a merchant and you're not in the weeds on your promotions and really understanding like what the codes are and how often they're being used and where the origination's coming from, like you're just giving away money. And so I think there's a ton to be learned. And I talk about this sea of data, yet there's a lack of data. I think there's a lack of actionable data to really give confidence to merchants of like how to conduct efficient promotional strategies.
Yeah, I suppose part of it is, and it's a topic that comes up again and again, which is quite annoying actually. But teams get siloed. That data and feedback is not it's not really making its way around the business. So, for example, a PPC team will like just see that they've had X number of conversions, their code has been used X number of times. The Facebook team will do the same, but then that's their view on it, and that's that alone. They don't really care about other numbers. So there'll be someone, I don't know, in the finance team or wherever, who looks at those numbers and goes, well, hang on a minute. Between the two of you, you've generated 150% of the sales that should be there.
Yeah.
Because there's crossover, because that code is has gone somewhere like honey. And I think that's a big problem. And until you get that person in the middle who actually does that analysis, you will miss it. And I think that's missing in a lot of businesses. I don't think I've worked in a business where that would have been picked up.
Well, and I think you're right, and it really comes down to like you want to believe the data too. Right? Like, I mean, if you're a marketer, you want to believe that like the work that you're doing every day is actually working. And so, in some cases, I'm not saying anyone's doing anything, malicious here on the marketer side, but like, I don't know, if you're spending money and you're driving campaigns and you've got promo codes being, used, like that somewhat validates the effectiveness of your campaign. And I think it was Procter & Gamble that I think 2 years ago, I think they pulled $200,000 out of their digital spend and they did not see sales change. Right. So like, I think in some cases, there's going to be a lot of like A/B testing and really understanding, call it that organic versus incremental. Like what would have happened anyway? Okay. Now what happened as a direct result of this marketing? And that's where I think it's really challenging to show that ROI. And, yet when you see, if you've got, 20 promo codes and you got one that's doing 90% of your volume and it just happens to be that one that's the highest value one, and it skyrockets up the day after you did it and you didn't have a big marketing campaign around it, you probably should like think deeply. And, I also tell a lot of folks, like, if you're in this business, like we're all consumers, download these tools, put them on your computer, understand the user behavior, really walk that customer journey to see what's happening out there. And I think in some cases you'd probably be shocked of what actually happens. So yeah, I think there's just a ton to learn, Will. Like I really think it's been happening for a long time. But I still think we're in the early days of really getting clarity for marketers so that they really understand, the incrementality and when they should be paying for things and when they shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other issues is probably that when things are going well, people don't investigate.
You're spot on.
Because why would you investigate if everything's going well?
Mm-hmm.
If everything's going as expected, why waste your time investigating it when you could be working on the next thing?
Well, and by the way, if it proves something otherwise than you were doing an amazing job, there's probably risk to your job security, right? Wow, do they really need me?
No one wants to report a successful campaign and then a bit later go, well, actually, I looked into this and I was wrong. It's not being driven by us.
But I think the way that we look at this is like, there's so many reasons why our product makes sense for merchants that are feeling the pain from honey. Obviously, your revenue is being reduced, right? So like, there's no other way to grow your revenue without growing your sales. Like you don't need to sell more product and you can make more money, right? So like, that's great. That will give you more budget to actually be able to go out and buy net new incremental sales, like net new customers. And so like, there's very few ways in which you can protect your margins, protect your revenue, protect your user experience, and then stop paying, incrementally for this affiliate abuse that's happening. Like all of that. Like, this is why I think in many cases, the folks that we're talking to are like the chief marketing officers at these companies. They're excited about it because, wow, we're going to give them a source of truth and actually give them some of their money back so that they can then go out and really focus on driving incremental when what they kind of had was a bit of a leak in the boat, where, they're just paying for stuff that really isn't driving net new incremental.
So apart from obviously using a tool like CleanCut, what can brands do to mitigate the use of these sort of extensions? If it's not kind of blocking them, is there anything they could be doing on site to try and get people to either not use them or to head them off a bit?
I think that the tactics that I have seen are they either kind of like go into their shell and have no discount strategies, or they go in and have a very small discount strategies because they're fearful that these codes are going to get leaked. And they get leaked very quickly. I don't know if you know how the user experience works, but basically if I have Honey on my computer and you sent me a legitimate promo code for me to use, and I typed that promo code in, the first thing that Honey does is it scrapes that code out. So that's how they kind of get leaked. It's real Honey users that are actually using legitimate codes, and they kind of get like jammed into the Honey database. So, but things like, I think really, if you were to ask me that same question on the malvertising side of my business, like what can people do? Well, like there's a whole bunch of things you can do, and you can try and go hand-to-hand combat, and you can, try and work with fewer partners, or you can try and, do this or do that. But at the end of the day, you're kind of bringing a knife to a gunfight. Like I think at the end of the day, like technology wins, right? Right now, technology is winning for consumers to get bigger discounts than they deserve. I think the only real way to combat it is with technology. Otherwise, you're kind of, trying to plug holes, and it's not going to work. And by the way, it's like whack-a-mole. You'll be able to stop it in one place, but it's going to pop up somewhere else. And, we've had folks on the malvertising side say like, hey, listen, I'll just hire an engineer and he'll try and tackle it, or she'll try and tackle it. And lo and behold, the people that you're trying to compete with are way better staffed than you are. So when I think about what we do, like this is our sole focus. We live and breathe this every day. By the way, Honey and Wikibuy, I mean, these guys are going to be just like the bad actors in the malvertising space, where they're going to change their technology. They're going to change their tactics. They're going to do whatever they can to actually get around our defenses. So this is a living, breathing problem that I think you really need to bring technology to, and not try and, stop it. Because the reality is like, talk to a merchant this morning and they're like, yeah, like we just stopped doing discounts. Like, how's that going? Right? Like, I don't know if that's the right long-term strategy. It might be for them and their brand. But again, you're trying to drive sales. Like, how do you inspire people to come to your website? Like in a one-to-one fashion versus then paying for everybody else who came to your website. That's the real problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah. I think one solution could be using unique codes and one-use codes. But then obviously you have to generate them per customer at the right time for that customer.
It's not that scalable from what I understand. And I mean, like that is a possible solution. But, at the end of the day, how do you use a single-use code on a podcast? How do you use a single-use code on a one-to-many marketing channel? It's really hard.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
How do you use an Instagrammer with a single-use code, right? Like, the first one that responds and uses this code, like then you create this terrible customer experience. One of the things that we actually had with one of our merchants, like, they're an interior, like they sell interiors, they sell drapes and carpets and all that sort of stuff. And they were working with interior designers and giving them exclusive codes so that they could come and get 50% off. Well, guess what? Honey got a hold of those coupons. And lo and behold, they've got users, just a general user, all of their orders on a certain given weekend are like now 50% off. They actually had to cancel sales, reach out to the customers and say, like, unfortunately, that coupon was not intended for you. So they didn't go with the single-use strategy. Shame on them. But, I think there's it's a really hard problem to solve for. And I think trying to do it without technology is, you're going to be chasing your tail.
Yeah, and especially third-party technology. If you guys are working on this tool, and you've got a team dedicated to constantly improving it and analyzing what Honey's doing and trying to kind of beat what they're doing, that's going to be so much more effective and cost-effective for a business rather than trying to do it themselves. Because
I agree with you.
Whatever tactics they take, whether it's if it's remove discounting, then that causes its own problems. If they go to like unique codes, that obviously has its own problems. And if they try to technically beat Honey, yeah, I mean, what are they going to do? Hire a team of developers to try and do that? It's not going to happen. So yeah, I think you're right. Third party tools.
Yeah, I mean, stick to your knitting. I tell people, like, listen, there's a lot of things that we're really good at, and there's things that we're not good at, and we partner for those things. Like, we find the experts who have 50 people that are solving that problem versus trying to like ham and egg it and hire a body or two bodies to try and solve it. And especially when it's not like a living, breathing problem. Cybersecurity, which is the industry that we're in, is a living, breathing problem. It's not the traditional like product development where you can build a product and then move on to the next problem that you want to go solve. The problem is constantly changing. And so that's why it requires, it's resource intensive. But you also need to remember that the bad guys that you're competing with, they're not like waiting for, they're continually innovating. And so you've got to be continually innovating as well.
Yeah. And I guess on that note, what are the big trends that will come up in, I guess not trying to block codes or how Honey will develop, but more in like how businesses will use discounts and coupons, and how customers react to them. Because I know I push for a lot more kind of brand and customer experience focus. So I try to move away from discounts and coupon codes. Do you think that's a possibility, an option to try and actually kind of almost completely move away from discounting and coupons and things, except for maybe in loyalty programs and referrals?
Yeah, I think everyone's
going to. Or is it more of attack the technology and go down that route?
Well, I think doing sales to drive traffic, it's as like old as the day is long, right? Like a discounting strategy to drive people to execute on a behavior, like it's been happening since the dawn of time. So I don't think people are going to necessarily like completely move away from it. I do think marketers are getting smarter. I think there are more tools for them to be able to manage these things. There are more tools for them to be able to get smarter on the data. Like a old school bricks and mortar retailer who has a website presence here in the US. I don't think you guys have them over there, but Bed Bath & Beyond, if you ever heard of these guys. Like,
I have heard of them. I don't think we have them.
So they're notorious for having a 20% off coupon, meaning like they're everywhere. They're like in the newspaper and they're in your mailers and they're all over the place. So it's kind of like, it's almost known that like at any given time, you can always get 20% off anything at Bed Bath & Beyond. Well, they just announced that they're actually like going to move away from that. I don't think it means that they're going to move away from discounting. I think it means they're going to be more strategic, such that like every single person on the planet doesn't automatically, think that they're going to get 20% off every single order. So I think you're going to see people get smarter about it. I do think, I talked a little bit about, Honey being acquired by PayPal and Wikibuy being acquired by Capital One. I think there's a bit of an arms race going on here. And these guys are all very well funded. So, the fact that Wikibuy is running TV commercials with Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, like they're not resting in their laurels. Like they are driving new users. They are spending a boatload of money on primetime television. You know how expensive that is. So I think that the problem of Honey and Wikibuy and these automated extensions, like it's only going to become more acute. And so I think the necessity to really get serious about your discounting strategies and make sure that you have protection, I think like will likely like continue to hit a fever pitch as we go through 21. Yeah. And we talk about like the e-commerce innovations in the last 12 months that we've basically seen 10 years of adoption in the last 12 months because of COVID. Like, I think it's just like everything is on hyperdrive. Everything is hyper growth. You kind of made a comment, I think a little bit earlier about like, when it's raining money, people don't necessarily like pay attention, right? It's like, it's easier to not have to focus on these problems when there's so much money, when there's so much growth. And I think that might've been 2020. Like, I think many merchants grew exponentially in 2020, all because of COVID and the pandemic. And 21 is going to be one of those years where I think, let's figure out efficiency. Like, let's figure out how we make more money.
Yeah, definitely. I do think I've definitely seen a big shift towards customer experience, like customer engagement. So basically like focusing on branding and values on websites and actually making sure customers understand the business values and being genuine about it. And also customer value optimization, which is something that I do. I consult on. But yeah, I think there's been such a big shift in the last 12 months and growth and development that, hopefully we'll just see more on that kind of customer value piece and people not wanting to just discount and drive acquisition, but focusing on more of that valuable acquisition.
You got it.
Have you got anything else, any other points you'd want to make about kind of voucher fraud before I move on?
No, I think, my feedback to the audience, if they've got concerns or they really just want to learn more, it's like we give everybody a free trial. So you're going to get to trial out the software and understand what your problems are, what the top codes are that are being, redeemed or attempted to be redeemed, what the extensions are that are on your users, like in your shopper. So we're going to try and give you a really good, knowledge base of what's happening on your website. And obviously, hopefully save you a bunch of money in the meantime. So my sense is like you should, hopefully do a bunch of these, testing out of new software and really learn about that customer experience and that customer behavior so that you can make, very well-informed marketing decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think customer experience is really important. You don't want to mess up the customer experience by trying to block these things, but equally you don't want to lose that revenue. So it's definitely worth looking into, and test out solutions, find the right one. Apart from obviously voucher fraud and abuse, do you have any pet peeves in marketing?
I mean, as a consumer, I would say obviously to me, I like efficiency. I'm one of those buyers who I'm a, very spur of the moment. I search and buy in the same transaction. I'm not one of those guys that puts things in carts and then comes back 2 days later to buy. For me, a frustrating thing is when I get retargeted after I've already bought it. Yep. And I see it all the time. Right. And so, I think there's probably a lot of things that we can do to improve that.
That's just poor behavior, isn't it? Like poor.
But don't you see it every day? I see it every day.
I don't think I see it every day, but I've definitely seen it where I've bought something. I've gone through the checkout to the confirmation page. I'm now in that customer database and I'll get retargeted. That's just poor marketing.
Well, and by the way, it's probably hard. I mean, it's probably hard. I don't know. I'm not in the retargeting or remarketing space, but yeah, I think that to me is it kind of looks a little bass backwards, right? The way things, you should be marketing to me to drive the sale, not marketing me after I've already purchased. So that's I think the inefficiency around that. I think that kind of frustrates me a little bit, but no, I'm a pretty easy-going guy.
Well, I had one kind of the opposite of that actually recently. I didn't buy a product, and I received an email from the other day asking me to review my purchase.
Oh wow!
Which is really interesting. It was the weirdest purchase experience I think I've ever had. I won't say the brand, but it's a very big computer brand.
Yeah.
I bought a monitor from their website. The money left my account. I saw the notification on my phone. I think I got an order confirmation email. It looked like I had made a purchase. A week or so later, I got a refund. And so I got in touch with them and I said, I've got this refund, but my order status is still confirmed. What's going on? Mm-hmm. And the customer support agent said, "Oh, we take the purchase on dispatch or delivery. I can't remember." Mm-hmm. Which kind of raises questions over why I was charged in the first place, if that's their policy. But there was a good 3 weeks until they were going to be dispatching the product because stock issues, I guess. But I also happened to notice that the product was £30 cheaper at that point.
Wow.
So I said to them, well, okay, so do I get charged the price it's going to be on dispatch, or do I get charged the price that I paid? And they said it's the price that I paid. So I thought, well, I've got that money back. It's already refunded to my account. So I'm just going to cancel my order. I've got 2 weeks until you dispatch it anyway. So I'm going to go look for the product elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I ended up buying a different product, a better one, actually, for cheaper, because they just, I don't even understand how they messed that up. But yeah, then shortly after Christmas, got an email asking me to review my purchase, which obviously never happened because it's just so strange. Stuff like that really bothers me, but I think it bothers me as a marketer, and as a consumer. But just as a marketer who deals with customer experience and customer value optimization, they had a great opportunity to just say, "Oh yeah, you'll get the price on dispatch or whatever, or I can apply that discount for you." But no, they just lost the purchase instead. And finally, have you got a particular area of marketing that you think is quite underrated at the moment?
I mean, I always feel that word of mouth is probably the most underrated marketing channel. I think a lot of folks think that you can maybe have a mediocre product and you can buy ads and drive growth that way. But we've actually been quite successful in I think putting a ton of focus on building the best product that our customers will tell their friends about. We've been around for 3 years. We just hired a marketing leader 3 months ago. So all of our growth has come through word of mouth. And, so I think, word of mouth to me is like, it's the cheapest. Obviously you're investing in your product, so that's expensive, but there's no better way to grow your business than through word of mouth. I think absolutely. I think it's underappreciated.
Yeah. Super important. And actually, while you were talking, I was thinking about it. I know in startups, it does get mentioned in job specs. You are expected to increase word of mouth, but that's a very generic, it's a job spec thing. I can't think of anyone in any companies I've been in who has been responsible for building word of mouth.
Yep.
And focusing on, and I know it's obviously quite a difficult thing, but there's no one who's thinking on these channels or with this experience, like how can we leverage this to try and get people to talk about us? And in a way which the customer will actually want to do it. Normally it's just, here's a referral scheme, refer your friends to get some credit, or please just share your purchase on social media, which no one really wants to do.
Yeah, we've really focused on product and we focused on measuring net promoter score. Our net promoter score is like 85. So, that means that, it's world-class. People, like your customers, are willing to tell their friends like how much they love your products. And to me, that's the most valuable marketing we can have.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had people referred to me, and it's always, it's an easier sales process, and far more likely to turn into clients.
You got it.
If someone has sent them my way, even with no interaction at all. And actually, even just from a B2B point of view, like content marketing, I had someone connected with me on LinkedIn the other day, just sent me a message saying, "Can we chat?" And it's just because they'd seen my content out there. So I guess that's content marketing, but it would have probably come about because someone liked my post or commented on my post.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome stuff. Is there anything else you want to add? Or how do people get in touch? How do people find out more about what you do and test it out?
Yeah, you can find us at clean.io, or if you're really interested in the product, it's blockcouponextensions.com. But you can get there through clean.io. Listen, if you want to connect with me personally and professionally, LinkedIn, find me on there, Matt Gillis. And then if you want to send me an email, matt@clean.io. So happy to help your users, and no high pressure sales, more like let's go solve a big problem together.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Will, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Take care, bud.
While there is some benefit to these extensions, you might be acquiring more new customers, for example. There are huge downsides to letting these extensions roam free. Your margins get hit, as even loyal customers who love your products will still get these discounts, possibly alongside any loyalty program discounts you're giving as well. And your tracking can end up all over the place. Any discount code based tracking you do is completely unreliable, as you've got no idea whether an influencer or a podcast is actually generating that sale, or if someone has just hit apply codes on Honey, for example. If you are worried about this, do reach out to Matt@clean.io and have a chat. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do remember to rate it on iTunes. It's super useful for me, and I love seeing the reviews there. As usual, any comments or questions, just fire them over to will@customerswhoclick.com. Next up, I've got Sarah Curran from TrueFit, and we're going to be talking about proper personalization and giving customers a really fantastic and unique online experience. But until then, keep those customers clicking.